It began with the whisper of sickness, that quiet fear that creeps into the hearts of those who care for others. The year was 1866, and the orphan houses that George Müller had faithfully built and sustained through prayer were about to face a new kind of trial. Not one of lack, not one of hunger, but one of health. The measles came. It started as a small outbreak, but soon it spread through all 3 orphan houses. Every corridor, every nursery, every bed seemed touched by the hand of affliction. The sound of coughing, the quiet cries of fevered children, it filled the air. To the natural eye, it looked like a disaster. But George Müller didn't panic. He didn't run to physicians first, nor did he retreat into fear. He went where he always went, to his knees. You see, Müller had learned a secret, that faith is not only for provision, but for protection. That the same God who multiplies bread and milk can also command disease to lose its power. He gathered his staff, and together they prayed. Not long, fancy prayers, but specific, faith-filled ones. They prayed first that not too many children would fall ill at the same time, so that the infirmary could hold them and care for them properly. And what happened? God answered. Though the numbers were great, 83 in house number 1, 111 in house number 2, and 68 in house number 3, yet never once were the infirmaries overwhelmed. As soon as one group recovered, room opened for another. It was as if God himself had scheduled the sickness, pacing its spread, ensuring that his children were never without care. Friend, that's the faithfulness of God. When you pray specifically, God answers specifically. Psalm 91 verses 10 to 11 says, "No evil shall befall you, neither shall any plague come near your dwelling. For he shall give his angels charge over you, to keep you in all your ways." That promise doesn't mean storms won't come. It means that when they do, God's presence stands between you and destruction. Müller and his helpers didn't just stop there. They prayed again, this time, that none of the children would die. Imagine that. Over 260 children infected, in a time when medical science was limited. And yet he dared to ask that every one of them would live. Faith, true faith, doesn't make small requests, it believes for the impossible. And God honored that faith. Not a single child was lost. Not one. 262 children passed through the fire of sickness, and all came out whole. No funerals. No grief-stricken staff. Only testimonies. Müller called it a signal mercy and blessing of God, and indeed it was, because the hand of God was visible, not only in the healing, but in the peace that ruled the houses while sickness raged around. Isaiah 26 verse 3 declares, "You will keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on you, because he trusts in you." While others would have panicked, Müller's peace was his shield. That peace came not from the absence of sickness, but from the assurance of God's nearness. The third prayer he made was that no lingering effects would follow the illness. No blindness, no weakness, no chronic afflictions that often came after measles in that time. And once again, God proved himself faithful. Every child not only recovered, but grew stronger afterward. This wasn't luck. It wasn't coincidence. It was heaven's response to faith. And if you look deeper, you'll see that the real miracle wasn't just physical healing. It was spiritual alignment. Because in that season, God wasn't only protecting the bodies of orphans. He was shaping the faith of his servants. He was teaching them that prayer works, not sometimes, but always, in his way, in his time. Friend, maybe you've prayed before and it seemed nothing happened. Maybe the sickness stayed longer than expected, or the healing you hoped for hasn't come yet. But hear this, every prayer uttered in faith goes somewhere. None of them vanish. They collect like incense before the throne of God, waiting for the appointed moment to pour out as blessing. James 5 verse 16 reminds us, "The effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much." Müller didn't have special access to God. He simply believed what that verse said. That prayer changes things. It's easy to believe in miracles when life is calm, but faith that stands in sickness, faith that trusts when fever burns and answers delay, that's the kind that moves heaven. Picture those orphan houses. Hundreds of children lying in bed, weak, pale, coughing, the air heavy with worry. Yet in the midst of that, Müller's faith burned brighter. He didn't pray in fear, He prayed in authority. Because he knew something powerful. Sickness is not the final word, Jesus is. When Jesus walked this earth, he never met a disease he couldn't heal. Lepers, blind men, paralytics, every one of them found restoration at his word. And he hasn't changed. Hebrews 13 verse 8 says, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. The same power that healed in Galilee was at work in Bristol. The same compassion that moved Jesus to touch the leper's hand was moving through Müller's prayers for those children. And the same power is still available to you. You see, sometimes we think of healing only in terms of physical sickness. But sickness can also touch the soul, doubt, fear, bitterness, depression. And the same faith that brought healing to Müller's orphans can bring restoration to your heart. Psalm 147 verse 3 says, He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. Maybe your prayer today is not for measles, but for a mind burdened by anxiety, for a home wounded by strife, for a heart weary from disappointment. The same God who answered Müller still hears your voice. Müller didn't have modern medicine, yet he had something greater, the presence of God. And that presence filled those orphan houses so tangibly that even sickness bowed to it. We live in a generation that often runs first to everything else before running to God. But Müller's story reminds us that prayer is not the last resort. It's the first response. When fear knocks, faith should answer. And faith doesn't mean pretending the problem isn't real. It means acknowledging that God is greater than the problem. Müller never denied that the measles were real. He simply declared that they were not sovereign. God was. That's the heart of divine trust, knowing that every disease, every delay, every challenge is still under God's authority. Romans 8 verse 31 asks, If God is for us, who can be against us? If he can hold 262 children in his hand, surely he can hold your situation too. Faith may not always prevent the storm, but it will protect you in the storm. Müller's journals weren't just records of miracles. They were records of relationship. Each answered prayer deepened his trust, and each trial became a testimony. He never saw sickness as an interruption to God's work. He saw it as an invitation to experience more of God's power. And that's how we should see it too. Whatever trial you're facing today, whether it's sickness, lack, or uncertainty, don't rush to escape it. Lean into God within it. Let your first instinct be prayer, not panic. Because prayer moves heaven, and heaven still moves earth. When the measles finally passed, the orphan houses didn't just return to normal, they overflowed with gratitude. Müller wrote, I gratefully record this signal mercy and blessing of God, and this full and precious answer to prayer, to the honor of his name. He didn't take credit. He didn't boast. He lifted the glory where it belonged, to God. Because Müller understood that testimonies are not meant to end with applause. They are meant to lead to worship. Maybe that's what this story is reminding you today. That every answered prayer is an altar. A place to bow and say, Thank you, Lord. And even if your answer hasn't yet come, faith itself is a victory. Because faith declares, I trust you, God, even when the outcome is unseen. John 11 verse 4 says, This sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God may be glorified thereby. That was true for Lazarus. It was true for those 262 children. And it's true for you. Your story is not ending in death. It's being written for glory. So stand firm. Pray again. Believe again. The same God who healed then still heals now. And when he answers, whether through a miracle, a process, or a peace that passes understanding, record it. Tell it. Share it. Because every testimony strengthens another believer's faith. Just as you are hearing Müller's testimony today, someone needs to hear yours tomorrow. Don't hide what God has done. Declare it for his glory.